right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Brunch and Learn today. We will go ahead and get started in just a second. Appreciate everybody taking some time out of their schedule to meet with us to discuss one of the newest components of the Power Platform, and that is the Microsoft Power Pages product. And what we're going to go ahead and do is get this kicked off right about now. So thank you, everybody. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with some introductions. Your presenters today, myself, Corey Bakhtiari. My role here is I'm going to be sort of emceeing our webinar today on the Microsoft Power Pages. And the person who's going to be really providing you a lot of the knowledge and expertise on Microsoft Power Pages is Ryan LaBelle, our expert in this space. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan LaBelle. I'm a technical consultant with Argano, and I've been with the Microsoft ecosystem for about 3+ years now, working across Azure, D365, and Power Platform, and I'm really excited to talk about Power Pages today.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So this is our agenda. Obviously, what we're going to be doing is, and we just did a quick introduction to us who are going to be facilitating this conversation on Microsoft Power Pages. Ryan's going to go ahead and give us a high-level overview of Power Pages, its place within the broader Power Platform, and also give you some understanding of how you can actually go ahead and deploy, leverage the Power Pages experience from a maker, pro developer, and an administrative perspective. Before we get directly into that content, I would just want to remind everybody from a housekeeping perspective on a couple items here. There is a question and answer chat box that you can leverage. Please feel free to ask your questions in that chat box. We will have some time at the end of this presentation where we will be fielding questions, and it'll be a little more dynamic. We can also, if there are any follow-ups, we'll be able to address them there. If for some reason we feel like maybe there's a better timing in order to address some of the questions that might come in, we'll go ahead and address it at that time. But for the most part, we'll be holding all those questions until the very end. Another thing that I would note is that the On24 user experience is pretty dynamic. So you'll probably notice you've got different capabilities around being able to pop out different screens and slide or resize the different screens, including what's being presented amongst other areas as well. So I would just say that, hey, you know what, you've got some ability to play around with that, and please feel free to as we go through our presentation today. So with that said, I'll go ahead and I'll hand this off to you, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. So today we're talking about Power Pages, which is the 5th pillar of the Microsoft Power Platform. So you might already be familiar with the Power Platform. It's a low-code, no-code platform for building custom business applications. And it's made up of Power BI for business analytics, Power Apps for application development, Power Automate for process automation, Power Virtual Agents to build intelligent chatbots, and the 5th pillar, Power Pages, to build external-facing websites. Included with the Power Platform, we have Dataverse, which is our cloud-based data platform to store different tables or non-relational data. We have AI Builder, which gives us some tools for a low-code, no-code AI experience toolset. So that allows us to use pre-built and custom models, such as invoice processing, sentiment analysis, or text recognition. And we can also connect to external data, whether it's first-party Microsoft or third-party, through data connectors. And those are wrappers over APIs that let us get that data in and out, interact with other systems. So we'll go ahead. And so Power Pages. Power Pages is an evolution of Power Apps portals. Power Apps portals is the solution to create web sites on the Power Platform. And so Microsoft took this core product and expanded it out and added additional features to it to make it more user-friendly and enhance that low-code, no-code experience. So what is it? It's an enterprise-grade, low-code SaaS platform for creating and hosting these websites, and it's that evolution. So it's a superset of Power Apps portals, and it has a lot of the same underlying foundation with new low-code, no-code experiences built in. So as it came from Power Apps portals, it is currently using that same licensing model and plan, and it has the roadmap to go into general availability in fall 2022. So one of the reasons that Microsoft is really investing in this is for Fusion teams. So there is a market need to have applications and custom websites, but not a lot of pro developers who actually have the skill set to build those out. So Microsoft is envisioning that we can utilize different people within the organization, people who have tribal knowledge, who are working within different departments and are familiar with the business processes and day in, day out operations of the business. They refer to this role as the low-code maker, so the maker role. So makers are people who are familiar with the business. They understand the different opportunities and the different opportunities for expansion that the business can build out. Microsoft is empowering them to be able to build what they envision without needing a pro developer. So we can use low-code, no-code tools to build exactly what you want, to get it into production, and to have it have a value add for the organization without requiring a developer. The pro developer role is not disappearing. It's just being empowered to do just the roles that truly require a pro developer. So when we're working with custom components and the need to expand the platform beyond what the low-code, no-code experience provides, that's when we can bring in a pro developer. Additionally, these applications have to run, and they need to run in a secure way, and that's for the administrator role. So there is the ability to handle security, different user roles, authorization and authentication, as well as some advanced features like a content delivery network and web application firewalls. So Microsoft is envisioning that these three roles will work together to produce solutions, and that it's not confined to just the pro developer anymore. So we're going to talk about these different experiences from the role level. So as a maker, this is your experience. So as a maker, if we decided that we wanted to go start building a Power Page, we can navigate to make.powerpages.com, and you'll be guided to this new interface. And so this is your landing page. This is your home page, where you can view all of the different sites that your organization currently has in the specific environment. It has a new URL, so it's been popped out from Power Apps portals, and now it's make.powerpages.com. We can easily view existing websites, and we have options to create new ones or edit the existing ones that we have. One of the new features that's pretty cool is you can see on the screen there is a preview button on one of those sites. It actually allows you to preview the website, but you can also view it in different form factors. So if you hit that button, it gives you the option of opening up a QR code, which will allow you to then open the website on your phone. So you can see it in a different form factor rather than just the desktop developer maker portal. So this new design studio has this homepage where you can view all the existing sites, and it also has a couple other hubs. So first off, as you're building, you may not know where to start, and this might be a new experience for you if you've never built a website or if you've never used a low-code, no-code platform like Power Platform before. And so Microsoft has brought in this Learning Hub to give us access to all this different documentation, tutorials, how-to guides, and best practices, all in one place directly within this Learn tab of the Design Studio. So you can get started very quickly, all by just going to this Learn page and walking through the documentation and different tutorials. Next up, we have the Templates Hub. And so templates are kind of a quick start for Power Apps portals. If we want, we can just choose the default template, or if we have a specific use case, we can use one of these templates to get started quicker. So an example is they have some templates for scheduling meetings, for program registration, application portals, and new employee onboarding. This is something that is likely to be expanded upon. You'll likely see new templates in this area in the future. it's definitely something that Microsoft is excited about. So you don't necessarily have to get started from scratch. You can start from a template and start customizing that right away. So now when we're actually building out our portal, we are using this new Design Studio experience. And so this is really the biggest change from Power Apps portals to this new Power Pages. We are given this new Design Studio, which has a number of different workspaces depending on what we're actually trying to accomplish. So right here, we're looking at this Pages workspace. And so this gives us a preview on the right-hand side. What you see is what you get. We're able to add different components to the screen. We can add different sections, different texts, different items and elements onto the screen. We can also create additional pages and control the navigation of those pages through that main navigation on the left-hand side. We can have different subpages. We can have any configuration that we're looking to accomplish using this designer. So this allows us to add sections, we can change the layout, we can add text, images, buttons, and we can also view it in different form factors. So on the top right-hand side, it's kind of hard to see, but there is the option of selecting the desktop, which we're looking at now, but also a tablet and a mobile phone. So we can see how this experience is viewed on different form factors, on different devices, right from this Design Studio. This next section is the styling workspace. So rather than customizing everything in that Pages Studio, they separated out styling. So this allows us to create custom elements and styles based on these themes, which can then be used throughout the website. This creates a very consistent user experience and makes sure that all of our buttons look uniform and consistent. It allows us to apply massive changes to the website itself by updating this template. And so there are themes out of the box that we can choose from, and then we can also expand upon those by adding different colors to the palette. We can control the background color. You can see, similar to your experience in Word or PowerPoint, we have the option of setting default standards for headers, for subheaders, paragraphs, bullets, lists, all of these different elements on the screen. We can control the font, the size, the color, everything about those. So by separating out this style guide, you can get input from marketing or other parts of your organization to make sure that your organization is, or your portal is compliant and in line with your company's unique branding. So this next section might look familiar if you're familiar with Dataverse, Power Apps, and Power Automate. This is a data workspace. So this data workspace is built on top of Dataverse, and you can see that the experience is very familiar. It is pulling in all of the tables from Dataverse. It's showing the different views and forms. And so we're actually able to interact with that data directly from this new studio. So all of the tables that we bring into our app to expose to our users of our application, our website, can be viewed and edited here. So if we want to create a specific view and make that specific for this website, we can pull in our table, customize that view, add in the different filters and all the different elements on that view. And the same thing with the form. We can customize a form specifically for our website and make it available for our website to use. So this gives us the ability to make all of these customizations and changes across the Power Platform right here in this one studio. So that is the experience of a maker. So you see you have 3 different places that we can go interact with. It gives us the opportunity to have custom pages, to have styling, and to also modify the data that we're working with. Sometimes that low-code, no-code experience doesn't quite fit the use case, in which case we can bring in a developer. So sometimes there are additional requirements that we need to extend the platform, or maybe some more uniform customizations. So in that same Design Studio, we do actually have an inline text editor. This is the same as Power Apps portals, where we are able to edit the HTML that is being displayed to the website. So we can do that right here in the studio without using any other toolbox. And developers are used to using a specific set of tools. And so Microsoft is thinking that these people want to continue using the toolset that they're familiar with. So what this does is, or what Microsoft has provided, is a couple of things. Number one, the Power Platform CLI. So the Power Platform CLI is a way of interacting with solutions and various Power Platform components, including Power Apps, Power Pages. In addition to the CLI, they have added a Visual Studio Code extension that can be installed, and this is what we're looking at right here. So with these two tools, we're able to pull down our portals, open them up in Visual Studio, make all of the code first changes that we need to make, and then also redeploy back to the portal online. We have access to the Power Apps Portals web API. This is the same as Power Apps Portals. This allows us to interact with Dataverse information, metadata through code. And we also have the component framework, which allows us to create code-first components that can then be used by makers within our design center, within our portal. And then there's also some of the things that we're familiar with from Power Apps portals, like page templates, web templates, and liquid code, which allows us to display records specifically within our portal, Power Pages. So when we're building an application, we're not thinking about just the initial build out. We're also thinking about the management of that application, the entire life cycle. And so Microsoft has invested in giving us a tool set in order to do this. And we actually have a couple different ways we can do it. So we have GitHub, which Microsoft has invested in GitHub Actions, where we can do deployments through that feature, or we can also use Azure DevOps. So the Power Platform CLI tool that I mentioned earlier is used to actually pull down packages, solutions, to make those customizations, and that's the tool set that's used by Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions to automate those deployments. So in the same way that you would work with code-first components, having them backed up to source control, having deployments being automated to downstream environments, we can do that here as well. But instead of it being code-first, we're committing that metadata to source control. So now that we have our application up and running, we have the maker experience covered, we have the developer side of things covered, we actually need to run our application. And so that's when our admin comes in. So as an admin, they're concerned about a few things, specifically security, users, getting them in and making sure that users have access to only the information that they need to see and only the information that they should be able to see. So as an admin, we have a slightly different tool set because our concerns are different. And so you can see right here from within the Design Studio, we have this setup workspace. Within the setup workspace, we have access to a lot of this security configuration. So one of the first things that we need to do is worry about authentication. So out of the box, Microsoft provides the ability to use different identity providers, such as Azure Active Directory, Google, Facebook, and others. So we can have our users be authenticated using a service that they're familiar with, that we're comfortable with, that the organization is comfortable with. And then from that point, once they're authenticated, each authenticated portal user is associated with a contact record within Dataverse. So this is the same as portals, Power Apps portals. Now that our users are authenticated, they are associated with that contact record, we can then provide access to those external users by configuring that contact record and inviting them to our site. So having them created as a contact, giving them the right web role, and having the right permissions associated with that web role. So with the contact record, or excuse me, with with the authentication, the other side of that is authorization. So when we're actually granting permissions, this is done by web roles. So web roles, you can create your own, such as administrator or whatever custom role you want to create, name it. You can add different contacts to this, which are authenticated to the user. And then we can assign different permissions to those web roles. So you can see in this example, we can create a new role. We have the ability to name it whatever we want. We have a couple out-of-the-box roles that are provided to us, which is authenticated and anonymous. So there are some aspects of your website that you may have open to the public, for example, a landing page or a home page, some information that's provided, but other information you may want to have behind an authentication login. So this allows us to control what information we have publicly exposed with anonymous logins and which ones require a user to be authenticated. And so there's two different types of permissions. This is showing table permissions. So on each of the records within that data studio that we've brought in, each of those tables, we can then create permissions on those tables. So whether we're allowing read, write, create, delete, append to, very similar to the security role structure within Power Platform and Dataverse, we can create these different table permissions. So if we want to restrict that user access to data, we can create a table permission. And we can also create page permissions. So if there's certain pages that we don't want the user to see or we want the user to be able to see, we can restrict access to those pages using page permissions and then add the roles to those different permissions. And that links the contact to the role and the role to the permission. That ensures that only the users see what they need and nothing but what they should be able to see. So there is the Power Apps Portals Admin Center, which is a legacy component from Power Apps Portals. So it is a tool you may already be familiar using if you are using Power Apps Portals currently. Within here, some of that admin setup and tool set is in this admin center. So for example, if you want to configure a custom URL or set up diagnostic logging or install specific features like SharePoint and Power BI, this is the place where you would still do that. You'll notice that if I go back, you'll notice that this setup page is within this new design studio. And there are some things that you can do in both places, and there's some things that are currently still being added to this new experience. So as Microsoft continues to define the roles, which activities are done more from an admin or more from a maker or more from a designer, they will continue to configure and improve this user experience so that it's a more seamless experience. But for now, there are still some things that we may want to access within this admin center. For example, the portal checker. So the portal checker is just a tool that does self-service diagnostics to identify any issues with your portal. That can be still accessed through this Power Apps Portals Admin Center. One of the cool features coming out is being able to deploy your website as a progressive web app. So progressive web app is an application that is multi-form factor and also multi-platform. So whether you're running on Android, iOS, Windows, Chromebooks, whether it's a mobile device, a desktop, or a tablet, a progressive web app will display to that form factor. Another thing that's neat about a progressive web app is if you are wanting to have a more native experience, app-like experience, look and feel, you can actually download this to your device. And so the user, instead of accessing this web app through a browser on their device, they can actually save it to their homepage and have it pinned there to access the application as if it were a local application on their device. And also through the Android, it can be available through the App Store. And I think that is it for the admin experience.
Thank you, Ryan. So we do have an offer, but I think it actually, let's make sense. Let's go. We've got a few questions here. that I think let's address these off the top, and then we can talk about the offer. So the first question, Ryan, is can we set up security or some sort of table level access so that what's viewed is based on contact properties? So think of it like as almost row level or record level security, so they can only see stuff associated with them or their contact or their organization. Is that supported?
That's a great question. Depending on the business context, there's certainly ways that we can provide the end user experience that they want. It really depends on the specific use case. We can definitely do filters based on the tables that are brought into the application, and we can have table level security to determine what the user is seeing in terms of data.
Yeah, I think that's a yes, and that's definitely worth doing a deeper dive depending on the specific requirements, right?
Exactly.
That's cool. Thank you. A few other questions here. I'm organizing them in what seems to be logical. So basically, when we're talking about the evolution of the Power Apps portal, a lot of that, what we're looking at is the login experience, right? So being able to facilitate that interaction or self-service component associated with like that web interface. We're not really expecting perhaps Power Pages to, also, or maybe are we, expand into your more traditional like public-facing web, web pages where there's like reactive capabilities and things like that. Is that, do you have any insight into that, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So one thing that Microsoft made very clear is that this is not a content management system. They do have a lot of, their consideration is that they're not trying to be one. So this is for when you have data within your Dataverse that you want to expose to external users, things like event registrations or working with other partners or other vendors, things like that, where you need to expose certain data. That's what these use cases for. They have talked about integrating with other CMS systems. So if you have an existing content management system where you're running your main website on and you want to integrate with that, it's not really an either or situation. It's a how do we make them work together kind of configuration.
Great, thank you. So folks with Power Apps portals right now, would they technically be able to go into the make.powerpages.com experience? Like, let's say they would, like right now, right after this.
It's a great question. So right now, it is in public preview. So it is not recommended to be used for production purpose right now. So right now, they have created this preview. So we're able to go in, we can start interacting with it, we can start seeing what the new experience is going to be. However, if you are already running a Power Apps project, the recommendation is that you continue down using portals. So it will converge into a single experience down the line when it comes into GA. But for right now, a lot of those new features are still in preview, and so you don't necessarily want to use them in a production environment. But if anyone is interested, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so it's just like sandboxing right at this point. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. So you can sign up for a trial and start looking at some of those new features at powerpages.microsoft.com. But the recommendation is just to wait until later this year to start using it in a production capacity.
Cool. Very good. One other question here is the URL. So I guess because it's not quite there yet when we're publishing, these pages, like what is it still that Power Apps portal dot, what have you kind of URL? Is that kind of what we're expecting, or do we know yet?
So out of the box right now, it will have that whatever your organization.powerportals.com. It will be, well, one, if you do have a different URL and domain name that you want to use, that can be configured within that Power Apps Portals Admin Center. So if you want to make it look more uniform to some of your other web resources, you can certainly do that. In terms of what it will look like out of the box, they may have some changes down the line as well.
Great. Good. Those rapid fire questions. And then I think you mentioned, like, just in terms of roadmap, there's a Microsoft web page that we can go to, and that in general, what we'd be looking at is maybe winter or end of year, this calendar year, for something that would be production context ready.
That's correct. Yep. So
Thank you.
there's a lot of new features coming out. Microsoft is really concerned about creating the best user experience. So they're really looking at how people are already interacting with their applications. They're looking at how their people are interacting with Power Apps and some of their other tool sets, and trying to create a uniform experience across the board. So whether you're working in Power Apps portals, Dataverse, Power Automate, they're trying to make that as consistent as possible for these different user roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, and just, kind of talking about, like you said, like the way that you organize this content also based on persona, like you've got it sounds like they're moving away from citizen developer and now we're calling this like a maker or
Makers.
kind of a world, right? Makers. I like that. Sounds a little less pretentious. So you still have the maker, the pro developer, and then the administrative experience. And I like how, yeah, so you mentioned some things also around leveraging Visual Studio, version control, ALM with Git or DevOps. So that answered one of those questions as well. So listen, if anybody does have any questions or follow-up questions or feel like they want to expand on anything that might have been talked about as part of this Q&A or previously, Q&A is still open. What we do want to also mention is that for all of our Argano Arbella clients, we are offering, and for those that are not all prospects, a free remote advisory session where we're going to be able to get into a deeper dive in terms of how you can leverage Power Pages. We can, frankly, we can frame this and tailor this in a variety of different ways. If it's more oriented towards a discussion around business value, how we can overcome challenges or meet your goals, that can be primary focus. If you're learning just to learn more, right? Looking for more of a training experience, like in someone like Ryan involved with yourself or other folks in your organization to begin to kick the tires of this new pillar of the Power Platform. These are all things that we can provide as a service to you for free. And I really hope that y'all take us up on this offer. So with that said, I'm going to double check to see if there are any other questions. Do not see any other questions. And then we'll thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate you bringing your expertise to bear here, as well as thank you everybody who has joined, and thank you for your questions. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you before our Brunch and Learn, where we can talk more about Power Pages. But if not, on our next Brunch and Learn. Thank you.
Thanks.